Hey there, Morgan in Maine. Um, some people know the story, some people don't. To be honest, I wasn't sure that I would be sharing this. But in light of the recent suicides that have happened, um, Heather Locklear was just hospitalized for saying that she was going to shoot herself, and you know about Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade. So a lot of people are having these conversations about mental health and depression and suicide. So I'm taking it as a sign to share my own personal story. When I was in high school, I tried to commit suicide. I was going through a really hard time at the time. I had gotten into some trouble at school with one of my teachers, and a good friend of mine at the time died of an overdose. So it had just seemed like as good of a time as any to take my own life. So I kind of, before that, it was a little bit of a premeditated thing. There was one day before that I had thought about doing it, and I met up with a friend, and just by talking with him, some of the things that he said to me, he actually saved my life that day. I changed my mind. But then when my friend died, I had a lot of guilt about it, because when he started using drugs, I decided not to have him in my life anymore. Because I just didn't want to watch him struggle. I didn't want to watch him slowly die. And so I chose to cut him out of my life because emotionally I couldn't handle it. And so when he did die, I had a lot of guilt from that. So anyways, that day my mom picked me up from school, and I asked her to stop at the store, and I bought a big bottle of aspirin and went home. That night I called my best friend at the time, and I told him I was going to do it. Other than that, I don't know that anyone really had a clue. Because I was always like this extrovert, very outgoing, happy-go-lucky, positive, like hug everybody, try to be friends with everybody, aside from like a few people in high school. I was really nice to everybody. So I hid my suffering well. Anyways, got home that night, got a huge glass of milk, and I just started taking pills, one pill after the next, after the next, after the next, after the next. I think I took the whole bottle. I can't remember. There was like 300 in there in the bottle. And I just waited. And after a little while, I felt really weird. I had this like ringing in my ears. And I woke up my brother, and I told him what I did. And he got my parents, and no one really knew what to do. So we decided to call an ambulance. They took me to the hospital, and I had my stomach pumped. Of course, I felt horrible for my grandmother because I didn't realize, but I had picked the anniversary date of when my grandfather had died. So that was really hard for her. The thing about suicide is people think it's selfish. They'll say that it's selfish, and I understand why somebody would say that, because for the people who are left behind, there are a lot of unanswered questions, and there's a lot of sadness there for the loved ones because they didn't see what was going on, or they wish that they had done something differently. I don't call it selfish though, because I've been there. I had enough experiences that were traumatic to me that felt like the best option. And at the time in high school, my depression did lead to suicide, and then later on in life, when I had gone through different bouts of depression, it didn't lead up to that, but I had enough pain in me from my experiences that I could understand why somebody would want to take their life versus living and dealing with that pain. The worst time in my life was 2016. I was living with so much pain for that whole year that I honestly thought I would die. And not because I wanted to kill myself, but I was living hell on earth. My pain was so intense that it was causing me physical pain. And if it weren't for a few of my friends and my husband, I think I probably would have died. So I understand why people get to that point, why they feel it's an option. And it's funny because people who don't experience it are like, why didn't that person reach out? I wish that they had said something, or why didn't I see the signs? And as someone who has been in that position, I can say a lot of times people won't show you. A lot of times it's the happy, smiling, extroverted, happy-go-lucky person who is suffering the most. Sometimes it's the people who have the biggest smiles on their faces that are suffering the most. And I know that when I got to certain points in my depression, I felt completely alone. I felt like there was no one that could understand me, even the closest people to me. It's just a very scary place to be. You just feel like you're alone and that no one else in the world understands you at all. And for me, when I would get to that place, I would start isolating. So that to me is a huge indicator, is if someone's isolating, take the time to reach out to them more. Like, be annoying with how much you get in touch with them. And it wasn't until 2016 that I realized, like, I can't get through this alone anymore. I had done it so many times before. It wasn't working for me. I finally realized that I did have a support system, and I reached out to them. And that's a really hard thing to do. That takes a huge amount of courage. It takes a huge amount of courage to ask somebody for help. It takes a huge amount of courage to go to groups, to go to a counselor, to really express those dark demons inside and get over your fear of being judged. But I just thought I would share that with you. I'm much better now. I'm on the mend now. I do have times where I feel like I'm about to embark on that journey of depression again, but I've gained a lot of tools in the past couple of years. One is like knowing who my support circle is and knowing that I'm important enough that I can reach out to them at any time. Another one is I found a really awesome counselor, and she's teaching me about mindfulness and meditation and yoga. Another thing is, like, I try to really focus on the things that make me feel good, that are healthy, like exercising, working in the garden, hanging out with my kids. And I kind of keep like a running list in my mind of all the things that I enjoy doing. So I go to that. I'm very close with my husband, so he can see kind of when I'm getting derailed. And there's tons of resources online, support groups, phone numbers you can call. There's so much. There's so many things out there. And I'm hoping that if you've ever suffered through this battle like I have, that you will realize that there are a lot of other options. So I'm really hoping that this speaks to you and that you can get through it too, like I have.